Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Mike Nierychlo Online, sharing my love for people, wine, food, and all things made passionately. So today we're again on the Nierychlo bench, stopping by a winery that's more embracing the fruit orchard aspect of the Okanagan. So join me today at Elephant Island Winery and let's see what's going on. So we're here with Miranda Halliday, one of the owners of Elephant Island Winery here on Nierychlo Bench. Hi Miranda, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to be here. So being that you're on the Nierychlo Bench, Elephant Island's a little bit unique and different. It's all traditional grape wineries around here, and you guys are a full-on fruit winery.
Yeah, surprisingly, we're one of the old guys on the bench now. Old elephants on the bench, I guess you'd say. We started the winery 10 years ago. 2000 was our first vintage, and we specialize in wines made from fruits other than grapes. My grandparents had the property purchased in 1973, and Del and I came up in 1998 and kind of took it in a new direction.
Del's your husband, right? And he's kind of the winemaker. What's his kind of role? So you two just kind of run the place?
No, he's assumed the role of head winemaker now, and we still use Christine LaRue, our consultant.
She's your consultant. She's had experience in Bordeaux as well.
Yeah, she was actually trained in Bordeaux and comes by the winemaking tradition very traditionally, actually. She was trained at the Institute of Bordeaux in enology, so yeah.
Well, it must be a fun challenge for her to especially work with fruit as opposed to what they're used to working with in Bordeaux.
Yeah, I mean the science is the same, science of winemaking is the same, but the art and the physical handling of the fruits and all the different permutations that evolve because of pits and pectins and different acids make it really interesting.
Make it interesting. Now, this was originally the history of the place is your grandparents' property, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, and what? Grandma was an architect and Grandpa was an engineer.
You really want to ask me the question, why is it called Elephant Island, right?
I want to ask you that, so why is it called Elephant Island?
My grandma bought this property, like I said, in 1973, and she purchased it as her retirement investment. And my granddad used to tease her and say that she was investing in a white elephant. Nierychlo wasn't quite so hot of a real estate commodity back then. So she convinced him to come, and he ended up supporting her investment, and they built their house, this house here, as kind of their dream project together. She is an architect, and he was an engineer, so good for building purposes, but the two professions don't get along at the best of times, and there was a few battles of the will through the process, but they did stay married, and through the process, he became convinced she was obsessed with everything aesthetic and nothing practical, and in the end, he came to call it the island, E-Y-E land. So to get back at him for all his teasing through the process, she christened it Elephant Island.
Elephant Island. Yeah, appropriate name for the place. Well, let's go see what other sites we can look at Elephant Island.
Sure thing.
All right. So you refer to your grandfather as Poppy, and all of the original, you were mentioning off camera, that the original winemaking recipes all came from him. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so when I was a youngster, I used to come and spend every summer in Nierychlo, and it was really cool because I'd go back to the coast and they'd say, "Where'd you go for your summer holidays?" And I'd say, "Elephant Island," and it sounded like I'd gone to Africa.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in fact, it was just 5 hours away in the Okanagan. Anyways, as part of that process of coming up, I used to hang out with my grandpa, and he would make more as a hobby. Fruit wines. We are surrounded here by Stella cherries, and all around us at that time were orchards. So he couldn't bear to see fruit go to waste, and he was inspired by winemaking from his experiences in Poland as a youngster.
Okay.
And that was just part of the summer ritual, making wines. So when he passed away, being an engineer, he left extremely detailed notes. And all of his winemaking, his hobby winemaking supplies. And when Del and I moved up 10 years or 12 years ago now, we kind of, he'd had the vision that this would be a likely progression for the region, because at the time there were some of the first land-based winery licenses being established, Hillside and Gunther Lang up at Lang Vineyards. And so he thought it would be kind of a interesting progression for the industry. So the seed had been planted, and then Del and I moved up, and he'd passed away, and we just kind of continued on with that seed, let that seed grow.
There you go. Now, you mentioned that you brought in a wine consultant who's like formerly trained in Bordeaux and whatnot. How did that, now did she really agree with Poppy's recipes, or did she finick with them a little bit, or what was the challenge like for her, and what things did she switch around in you guys, and how does that reflect in your winemaking?
Yeah, well, we absolutely had to bring in Christine, because up until that point we were in our early, no, well, not even 30, we drank a lot of beer and not a lot of wine by that point.
Yeah.
So we hired Christine, and her philosophy, coming from that very traditional training in Bordeaux, was to ensure that the traditions were respected and quality winemaking practices were used. There was, in the history of fruit winemaking, I think there is the tendency to be a little bit more cottage style. Most of the recipes that my grandfather had used had water added to them, and that was one of the first things that Christine said had to be dropped. Essentially, her recommendation was, what goes into the wine is what you're going to get out of it, and
it's a pretty logical thing.
Yeah. So we're looking for a pure expression of the fruit. I think as a result of her influence, our wines have, well, our objective at Elephant Island is to make wines that are a really good expression of the fruit and adhere to the traditional winemaking objectives of being well balanced and a good expression of the variety, and we're looking to have that pure flavor reflected.
So we're here in Elephant Island's cool old historic log tasting room, and Miranda, why don't you just share with us some of the wines that you can taste here at Elephant Island?
I would love to. That's what we're here for. We produce a really wide range of different styles of wines, and we're always happy to share them with people coming to visit. So we produce from, for example, a bone-dry pear wine that works lovely on a patio. Of course, I can't find it at the moment. We also have a dry red wine, our cherry wine, which I'm going to pour you a little sip of. And then through to some lip-smacking dessert wines, our apricot, our crab apple. They're such a nice color, I'll leave them up there.
They're beautiful.
And then a couple of fortified wines, our framboise, which is like incredibly popular. This one, actually Gismondi gave 90 points to in 07, so we were pretty proud of that.
Absolutely.
And then our Stella Port, which is a Solera aged fortified wine. This is made from Stella cherries. Fun wine. These are all headlines, moments in time that have passed since the wine's been in the barrel. So always good for conversation.
Really neat, for sure.
Iraqi journalist throws shoes at Bush in 2008, in case you
there
forgot.
You go. Yep.
And yeah, so we were going to try a little taste of the cherry.
2008 cherry, great.
This is the 08 cherry. We use Stella cherries, which are the big trees on the property here. Crush, press, ferment on the skins. And we'll see how it stands up to your cherry wine. We'll send some down on the next release.
There we go.
So you might pick up a little nuttiness in this wine. That's largely the influence of the cherry pit. We found that in leaving some of the pits in during fermentation, you get kind of a nice almondy influence on the wine.
Yeah.
Serve it slightly chilled. It's really food friendly.
It's just a nice, like you're saying, food friendly. This is a nice, I would really enjoy this as like a backyard barbecue sipper with your friends. Nicely chilled, it's quite bright. It's got this little hint of sweetness to it, and that nuttiness kind of comes through as well. It's a nice wine.
It's, I encourage people to taste all the wines despite what they may or may not like as a fruit, because it's quite interesting to see how they present themselves as a wine versus as a raw fruit. In the case of the cherry, I think it's a really interesting example of how tannin and acidity affects the perception of dryness. This wine is fermented bone dry, so there's no residual sugar, but it's quite soft in terms of tannin, so you don't have that real banana peel effect or drying sensation on the finish. And a lot of people that get migraine headaches with red wines too are really sold on our red dry wines because the histamine content in the fruit is so much lower than in a Cab or Merlot grape.
Oh, that's great. Have you guys got any new fun projects coming up or new features that Elephant Island is doing?
Well, funny you asked. Yeah, we do. We have our sparkling wines that are coming on stream in a big way. We started our project with the Little King in 2002 and always have made a very small amount of this. This is, we make about 110 cases of it and give all the proceeds to the Children's Hospital from the sale of this wine. So over, I think the last 6 vintages, we've donated over $60,000 to the Children's Hospital. And then based on our customer feedback, we decided to expand the offering to include, this is our baby, this is the wild teenager.
Oh, the wild teenager, there you go.
This is the Pink Elephant, so Method Champenois sparkling wine. If you can't read the label, you have to have another glass. If you're colorblind, you'll never get to read the label.
Yeah.
But essentially, the philosophy is to use the Method Champenois method, secondary ferment in the bottle. We use a Granny Smith apple or high acid base wine and then top it with a dosage of, in the case of the Little King, framboise, in the case of the Pink Elephant, cassis. So Cure Royale, reborn Elephant Island style.
There you go. And off camera, yeah, Miranda was going on and on about their sparkling. It's the next new project. They're really excited about it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for having us today, Miranda. It was excellent just to spend some time with you guys here at Elephant Island.
Excellent.
And for those of you who want to come by Elephant Island, I'll leave a link below the video as well. You can check out their website. But if you're ever on the Narrometa Bench and you want a neat fruit wine experience, make sure you come by. And it sure is neat to see a winery really embracing the orchards of the Okanagan instead of tearing them all down to plant something else. So you get some really old character-driven fruit.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for watching today, and we'll see you on the next episode.